I landed a full day earlier than planned. My meetings wrapped up ahead of schedule, and something inside me, call it instinct, intuition, whatever, told me not to text Miguel. I wanted to surprise him, maybe catch a smile on his face for once. Instead, I walked into the kind of nightmare you only see in movies. There were balloons, a cake, laughter, but none of it was for me. And then I saw her, Carmen, 6 months pregnant, radiant, standing beside my husband like they were the ones building a life together. I stood at the entrance of my own home, invisible to everyone. For a moment, I froze. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just watched. She cried in silence, but not this time. Not me. I was wide awake, and I noticed everything. The way Miguel looked at her belly. The way his mom helped Carmen settle into the chair I bought with my bonus. My best friend. My husband. My house. My life. He thought I would stay, but he was dead wrong. I didn't walk in yelling. I walked in steady, calm, dangerous. That kind of calm that comes before a storm people never expect. He never saw it coming. I remember Carmen's jaw dropping first. Then Miguel's face turned white like he'd seen a ghost. I could almost hear the gears in his head turning, trying to figure out how to spin this. But there was no fixing this moment. It was too late. My voice was low when I spoke, but every word cut like glass. "Looks like I missed the invitation," I said. "Who's the guest of honor?" Oh wait, the truth came out, didn't it? I scanned the room, and for a split second, I caught my father looking away, my mother clutching her pearls. They knew. Nobody believed her, but maybe I had been the only one in the dark. I felt like I had been sleepwalking through my life and suddenly snapped awake. I was nothing to him. That's the only explanation. You don't do what he did and still claim love. Love doesn't lie. Love doesn't deceive. Love doesn't leave you to discover your betrayal at a baby shower thrown inside your own home. It was a twisted celebration built on lies, and I was done playing the role of the clueless wife. Miguel tried to approach me, but I raised a hand. "Don't," I said. My voice cracked for the first time. I found the messages. I just didn't want to believe it. That's when Carmen stepped back like she didn't want any part of it. But she planned it all. I could feel it. The way she acted like the victim now was almost laughable. She had paraded through my life like she belonged, and I had welcomed her, fed her, trusted her. You don't forget that kind of betrayal. It burns into your memory like a brand. He betrayed me. I was deceived. And the worst part? They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. It was all so public, so confident, like I was the fool who'd never show up. Well, guess what? I did, and I came back ready. So I showed him the proof. I took out the folder from my bag, the one I had started building weeks ago. Photos, bank records, hotel receipts. I didn't need to yell. My silence was my answer. I just dropped the evidence on the table next to the cake. "You two want a baby? Great. But you're not raising it in my house. And you're not touching my money." There was a gasp somewhere in the room. Maybe from Carmen. Maybe from my mother. I didn't care. Stories of betrayal don't always come with warning signs. Sometimes they show up gift-wrapped in celebration, with pastel decorations and fake smiles. I stood there knowing this moment would split my life in two, before and after. And as twisted as it sounds, I was grateful to know the truth, because he broke me first. But I wouldn't let that be how the story ends. And you know, what's wild? As I turned to walk upstairs, leaving Miguel stunned and Carmen trembling, I realized this was just the beginning. My story wasn't over. In fact, it was about to get louder, sharper, smarter, because the woman who came back early, she wasn't just a wife anymore. She was a storm. I didn't plan to make a scene, but that's exactly what happened. Once you see your own blood clapping for your downfall, it flips a switch inside you. I looked around that living room, filled with people I once trusted. Miguel's mother handed Carmen a gift with a sweet smile. My dad toasted with sparkling cider. My mother hugged Carmen like she was already her daughter-in-law. Betrayal doesn't always scream. Sometimes it wears perfume and smiles politely. I cleared my throat and stepped forward. "How long have you all known?" I asked. Not one of them answered. My silence was my answer. That moment of collective guilt said everything. My voice rose, not out of anger, but purpose. "Just to be clear," I said, looking directly at my parents, "you helped plan a baby shower for my husband's child with my best friend." You could hear a pin drop. He never saw it coming, but neither did they. What made it worse? The lack of shame. My mom actually said, "Sweetheart, we didn't know how to tell you." "Oh, really? So instead, you threw a party?" Nobody believed her because nobody believed me either. I used to think betrayal would crush me. Turns out it clarified everything. I saw them for who they were. Every smile, every excuse, all masks falling at once. Then Carmen tried to speak. "Anna, please," but I cut her off cold. I was nothing to him, right? Just the one who paid the mortgage, cooked dinners, and trusted you like a sister. She looked like a deer in headlights. Miguel stepped closer, trying to say something about complicated feelings. That's when I laughed. Honest to God, I laughed. Complicated? Is that what you call screwing your wife's best friend under her roof? And here's the part that still stings. Some people in the room tried to defend them. One of Miguel's cousins muttered something about people make mistakes. Oh, I bet they do. But he thought I would stay, that I'd swallow it all, smile for the photos, and keep playing house. No, not this time. This time, I was going to burn it all down, truth first. So I turned to face the whole room. I've spent the last 3 weeks consulting with a lawyer, I said. I've documented everything, every dollar, every lie, every message. I found the messages. Don't worry, I printed a few for the curious minds in the back. I tossed a folder onto the coffee table. The sound it made? Music. So, I showed him the proof. They looked at me like I was the crazy one. But guess what? I was clear, sharp, powerful. She exposed him. And now, no one could unsee it. The pictures, the receipts, the truth. Carmen was trembling. Miguel was pale. And me, I was free. That was the first moment I felt it. The shift. The liberation. Like I had finally stopped begging to be seen. I didn't cry. Not in front of them. She cried in silence. That used to be me. But now, I was done bleeding in private. My pain wasn't a secret anymore. And if that made them uncomfortable, good. Let them squirm. Let them sit in the wreckage of their choices while I took back my power. One brutal truth at a time. Because he betrayed me in broad daylight. And now, daylight was exactly where I was keeping him. No more shadows. No more whispers. Just truth. Bright, loud, and undeniable. And that was only the beginning. Because if they thought that folder was the worst part, well, they had no idea what I'd planned next. There comes a point when your voice stops shaking and starts cutting through the noise like a blade. That moment came for me right after I slammed Miguel's betrayal into the light. I stood in that room full of stunned faces and realized something. My silence was my answer for too long. I used to hold my pain in my chest like it was mine to protect, but not anymore. Now, I let it speak for itself, loud, clear, and unapologetic. I looked Carmen in the eye and asked, "How long were you planning to smile in my face while growing his child?" She didn't answer. Couldn't. She was too busy looking down, like guilt would save her now. She planned it all. I knew that deep down. You don't accidentally end up 6 months pregnant with your best friend's husband, unless you're a special kind of cruel. And yet, they acted like I was the villain for speaking up. So I didn't stop there. I kept going. "You know what I did while I was away?" I said. "I met with an attorney. I gathered bank statements. I logged every transaction, every password, every text." I paused, watching Miguel blink fast like he might pass out. "I've spent the last 3 weeks preparing. You were playing house. I was building a case. Revenge isn't always about screaming. It's about outsmarting." That's when I pulled out the binder. I had copies, spreadsheets, receipts, all lined up like soldiers behind glass. Miguel whispered, "You went through my stuff?" And I laughed again. He broke me first, remember? So spare me the outrage. I wanted him to feel what it was like to be helpless, to be stripped of the narrative. Because for once, the truth came out on my terms. You could feel the temperature in the room drop. Even the ones who stayed silent earlier couldn't look me in the eye anymore. It's funny how people love to play neutral until you force them to pick a side. And I did, loudly. I didn't just expose what they did. I exposed who they were. Complicit, cowardly, willfully, blind. And I wasn't going to let them off the hook. I told Miguel, "You don't get to cry now. You thought I would stay. You thought I'd beg for crumbs after what you did." Carmen reached for his hand, and in that instant, I saw it again. That smug belief that I'd fold. But she finally left. That woman I used to be, she vanished the moment I walked through that door and saw the truth with my own eyes. And just to make it crystal clear, I added, "You will not touch my finances. You will not touch my property. You'll be hearing from my lawyer tomorrow." I could almost see his heart drop. He never saw it coming. Not just the exposure, but the cold precision of my exit. That's what scared him most. I wasn't broken. I was strategic. I glanced at my parents and said, "If your loyalty is to them, you can leave too." My dad looked ashamed. My mom just stood frozen. I was deceived, yes, but now I was awake. They wanted quiet compliance. What they got instead was a woman with nothing left to lose and everything documented. As I turned to leave, Carmen whispered, "Please don't ruin our lives." I stopped mid-step, slowly turned around, and said, "You ruined mine first. I just made sure everyone knows it." So I showed him the proof, and I walked out. No tears, no hesitation, just the calm certainty of a woman who's finally done, playing small, and yet something told me this wasn't over. Because men like Miguel, they don't let go easy. They beg, they twist, they spin lies so fast you'd think they believe them. But I was ready. I had more than evidence. I had resolve, and that made me more dangerous than he ever imagined. You'd be amazed how fast people change when the money dries up. That's the part Miguel didn't think through. See, he thought I would stay just because I'd always paid the bills. I guess he forgot that I was nothing to him when it came to respect, but everything to him when it came to survival. So when I made that final move, cutting him off completely, it wasn't just petty, it was necessary. I started by freezing the joint accounts. Every cent I had funneled into that house, that life, that illusion, gone from his reach. I had the documents ready. The lawyer had already filed the separation of assets paperwork. Miguel, meanwhile, was still acting like this was some kind of lover's spat, as if I'd just calmed down and everything would go back to normal. Oh, the audacity. I made it public, not in a flashy way, just clear. I called the mortgage company. I removed his name from everything I could legally touch. The deed, in my name, the utilities, paid by my salary, the furniture, the car, even the damn espresso machine, all bought by me. He never saw it coming, but I had built this life, and now I was dismantling it brick by brick without him. His first reaction? Rage. "You're destroying my life," he said, like I hadn't just walked in on a betrayal so deep I could barely breathe. He broke me first, but still, in his mind, I was the monster. He had no job. He quit when I got my promotion. Said he'd focus on personal growth. I guess that meant Carmen. And now, he had no income, no plan, and no clue what was coming next. I watched him spiral. He tried to access accounts, call our financial advisor, even showed up at the bank claiming I was making a mistake. But I had already anticipated every move. I had changed all my passwords, informed all institutions, and added two-step verification on everything. She planned it all. That's what they'll say about me, and I'll take it as a compliment. Then came the calls from Carmen. "Can't you be reasonable?" she asked. Reasonable? I had been reasonable when I paid the rent while he was sneaking around. I was reasonable when I trusted my best friend alone with my husband. I was deceived, and now I was done. I didn't scream. I didn't curse. I just said, "Talk to my lawyer," and hung up. Power can be quiet and still deafening. When Miguel realized there was no loophole, he tried a different tactic: guilt. He sent me a photo of our wedding day, followed by a text that read, he begged her to come back. But even my most sentimental self couldn't feel a thing, because now all I saw was a man who watched me sacrifice everything, then chose someone else without blinking. She cried in silence for too long. That woman who once believed love meant loyalty, even when it hurt, she was gone. In her place stood someone sharper, wiser, and completely done financing her own betrayal. There's nothing empowering about revenge if it drains you, but reclaiming control of your money, your mind, and your future, that's a whole different story. So when people asked me, "Aren't you being too harsh?" I smiled and said, "No, I'm being precise. You don't survive betrayal by hoping the betrayer will change. You survive by changing you, how you think, how you act, and how you draw the line." That's what I was doing, drawing the line, not in pencil, in stone. Still, I knew something was brewing behind the scenes, because when people lose access to your money, they usually try to come for something else: your time, your sanity, your name. And stories of betrayal like this, they don't just fade quietly into the background. I blocked them both. No explanation, no long paragraph, just click. I went no contact with Miguel and Carmen the moment I left the house. People think going cold turkey is harsh, but trust me, my silence was my answer. I had screamed enough. In my head for weeks. Silence was the loudest boundary I'd ever set. I checked into a hotel that night, a little roadside spot with thin sheets and terrible coffee, but it felt like luxury compared to the emotional prison I'd been in. I laid there, staring at the ceiling fan, not crying, just breathing. That was the night she finally left, and nobody clapped. Nobody noticed, but I did. I noticed myself, for the first time in a long while. The next morning, I didn't hesitate. I walked into my lawyer's office and signed the divorce papers. My hand shook a little, not from doubt, but from finally stepping out of a lie. He thought I would stay. Maybe that's what hurt him the most. Not the betrayal, not the exposure, just the fact that I didn't cling. I didn't beg. I vanished. He texted over 20 times that day. "Please, let's talk. You misunderstood. I still love you." Every message dripped with desperation, not love. Love doesn't hide phones. Love doesn't lie. Love doesn't plant a baby in your best friend and throw you a fake smile every morning. I didn't need more words. I already found the messages. I had seen enough. Carmen, surprisingly, messaged too. "I didn't mean for this to happen." Oh, really? Because she planned it all. From the late-night study sessions to the accidental sleepovers. The entire affair played out in slow motion behind my back. And still, nobody believed her when she said it wasn't on purpose. Not even her own sister, who messaged me later to say, "You deserved better." I stopped checking my phone after that. I muted the world and sat in silence. Sometimes we forget how powerful quiet can be. No replies, no explanations. I just started documenting everything. Photos, receipts, emails, voice memos. You'd be shocked how much truth you can uncover once you stop engaging with the noise and start listening to what's been right in front of you. One night, I sat at the hotel desk and looked at our wedding album, not to cry, not to reminisce, but to observe. Every photo suddenly looked different. His smile looked strained. Her eyes were always too close. I realized I hadn't missed the signs. I had ignored them. That stung more than anything. Still, he broke me first. That part, I refuse to forget. People love painting women like me as cold, but what they don't see is everything that happened before the freeze. The manipulation, the slow burn, the 1,000 cuts that made me immune to warmth. This wasn't bitterness. It was a survival strategy. By day 3, I had started mapping out a new routine. Yoga at 6 a.m., legal meetings by 10. I was creating order in the ruins. That's what healing actually looks like. It's not aesthetic. It's boring, it's structured, and it works. You want to recover from betrayal? Start with structure. Give your brain something to hold on to while your heart recalibrates. But I knew it wasn't over yet. Betrayal doesn't just end with distance. It chases you. And something told me Miguel wasn't going to accept silence as a goodbye. I could already feel the next confrontation brewing in the shadows. I was sitting at a quiet cafe, sipping a lukewarm latte, when I saw him walk in. Miguel, disheveled, pale, like the weight of his lies had finally started to show on his face. He scanned the room like he wasn't sure I'd still be there, like he didn't believe I could truly disappear without a trace, but he never saw it coming. That's the part that still gets me. He sat across from me without asking. Typical, like the world still owed him a seat at my table. "Anna, please, can we just talk?" His voice cracked like he was the victim. I looked him in the eye, calm as ever, and said, "Talk to my lawyer. Nothing else. Just that." And you know what? He flinched like I'd slapped him. I think deep. Down, he believed I was nothing to him. Just a phase, a provider, a convenience. And yet, here I was, holding every card. The house, the accounts, the evidence. I showed him the proof the moment I walked away, and now he wanted sympathy, compassion. After all the secrets, after he betrayed me in broad daylight, he started rambling. Excuses mostly. It just happened. Carmen was there when you weren't. I didn't mean to hurt you. I tilted my head, almost amused. It just happened? Like tripping over a shoe? No, she planned it all, and he played along like a willing fool. Betrayal doesn't just happen. It's chosen, step by step, moment by moment. Then he said the words I'll never forget. "I didn't think you'd find out." That was it. That was the core of it all. Not regret, not guilt, just shock that the truth came out. He wasn't sorry for the act. He was sorry for the consequences. That's what betrayal looks like up close. Empty, hollow, and pathetic. I leaned back and watched him fidget. He wasn't eating, wasn't drinking, just sweating in silence, expecting me to fall apart. But my silence was my answer. I didn't need to scream. He was unraveling on his own. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't need an audience. It rots the guilty from the inside out. He finally asked, "Is there any chance we could fix this?" I smiled, tight, practiced. "You can fix your conscience, Miguel, but you can't fix this. Because he broke me first. And you can't glue someone back together when you were the one who shattered them without blinking. That damage belongs to him now, not me." Then came the tears. Crocodile, of course. He grabbed my hand. I pulled away. "Don't do this, Anna." "Oh, honey." He thought I would stay. That was his fatal mistake. Mistaking kindness for weakness. Thinking loyalty was infinite even when shattered. That's why she finally left is always more powerful than any apology. The cafe had gone quiet. People were pretending not to watch, but I could feel the weight of eyes. It didn't matter. I stood up, looked down at him, and whispered, "This meeting was a courtesy. Don't expect another." I left my coffee untouched. There was nothing sweet left in that cup anyway, but I knew that wasn't the last I'd hear from him. Men like Miguel don't go down easy. And Carmen? Oh, she hadn't even started yet. Some betrayals echo long after the door closes. I stood across the street, tucked behind a tree, watching the scene unfold like a movie I'd already seen in my head 100 times. There it was, the house I paid for, the one I built brick by emotional brick, now crawling with moving men and boxes. Except this time, the people being moved out weren't guests. They were trespassers. Miguel and Carmen had officially worn out their welcome. The court papers had been served a week prior. He ignored them, of course. Thought he could wait me out, charm me back, or maybe just squat until I caved. But the law was on my side. I showed him the proof, title, receipts, every bank transfer. My lawyer made sure it was airtight. There was no debate left, just a deadline. The eviction notice gave him 72 hours. I gave him none. He never saw it coming. How fast things would move once I stopped playing nice. Carmen stood on the porch, arms crossed over her swollen belly, yelling into the phone. She looked around like someone might come to save her, but no one did. Not this time. Funny how quickly loyalty dissolves when money vanishes. Nobody believed her when she called family for help. She was the villain now, not the victim. And Miguel. He was pacing the yard, blaming everyone but himself. He looked like a man who'd misplaced his entire identity, because without my support, he had nothing. I was nothing to him, until I was gone. I watched a mover hand him a box labeled kitchen and had to laugh. Carmen smacked it out of his hands. They were arguing, loud, public, and desperate. The cracks were showing. She planned it all, but she didn't plan for this part. The consequences, the collapse, the isolation. This was the cost of betrayal. Miguel saw me eventually. I didn't wave, didn't smile. I just stood there, still, present, like the ghost of accountability. His eyes widened. That flicker of recognition, the kind that comes when someone realizes she exposed him. Not with gossip, not with revenge, but with cold, clear, unshakable truth. The truth came out, and it burned. He walked toward me like he had something to say, maybe to beg, maybe to bluff. But I got in my car before he reached the curb, locked the doors, started the engine. His hand touched the window just as I pulled away, like some sad scene from a love story. Except this wasn't love, this was justice. Behind me, Carmen shouted something I couldn't hear. She looked tired, bitter, like the fairy tale had dissolved overnight, and maybe it had. She cried in silence as the last of their boxes hit the pavement. For a moment, I almost pitied her. Almost. But then I remembered the party, the betrayal, the smirk on her face. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clean. There's a difference. Revenge isn't always rage. It can be quiet, precise, and legal. This wasn't about pain anymore. It was about closure. And as I drove off, I realized I had finally reclaimed my home, even if I never stepped inside it again. But the ripple effect of consequences had only just begun. The next chapter? Let's just say it gets colder before it gets clearer. I used to believe that being kind meant being soft, that even when someone shattered me, I still had to hold the pieces together with a smile. But after everything, after he betrayed me, after she cried in silence and nobody believed her, I realized kindness without boundaries is self-destruction. So when my own parents told me I was too harsh, I didn't flinch. I'd spent years being the peacemaker, the forgiver, the woman who held back to make others comfortable. Not anymore. It's wild how quickly people forget what you endured when your strength finally scares them. My mother asked if I could just talk to him once. My father looked at me like I was the problem now. But where were they when I was deceived? When he broke me first? They saw the party, they saw the bump on Carmen's belly, and they still smiled through it. The truth came out, but they weren't ready to face it. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. My silence was my answer. And in that silence, I drew my line in ice. Frozen. Solid. Uncrossable. It's funny. People interpret silence as weakness, but it's often the loudest scream from a person who's done explaining their pain. When I stopped justifying myself, they started panicking. That's the thing about boundaries. They only hurt those who benefited from you having none. My siblings reached out with those classic lines. Family is everything. Well, guess what? He thought I would stay because of that mindset, that I'd forgive him because family matters. But betrayal is betrayal, blood or not. And let's be clear, this wasn't a moment of poor judgment. She planned it all. They all did. And they expected me to play nice? No, that version of me no longer exists. There's power in not flinching when they cry. When Carmen called me, sobbing about how things are hard now, I didn't blink. She finally left him. Good for her. Maybe now she'll learn that karma doesn't knock. It kicks the damn door down. I gave no sympathy. Not because I'm cruel, but because revenge doesn't always look like vengeance. Sometimes it looks like thriving in the silence they left you in. Some nights, I'd hear echoes in my own mind. Was I too cold? Too sharp? But then I'd remember all the nights I cried in silence. When I found receipts, little signs, pieces of Carmen's hair in our bathroom. When I found the messages and my chest caved in like the air was poisoned. No one asked if he broke me first. No one wondered how deeply I was cut. So no, I wasn't too cold. I was finally fair. You know what nobody tells you? That healing makes you harder, not softer. You learn to stop sugarcoating, to stop saving people from the consequences of their own choices. When Miguel sent another email, begging for just one conversation, I smiled, because he never saw it coming. This version of me, calm, unshaken, free. He begged her to come back, but I had already built a life he no longer fit into. Friends, who once clinked glasses at our wedding, looked at me sideways. You should be more forgiving, they said. But they weren't the ones who sat in a hotel bathtub. numb, wondering how years of love could turn to ash overnight. They didn't. Feel the burn of stories of betrayal stitched into every memory. Forgiveness may come one day, but on my terms, not theirs. My therapist said something that stuck with me. Sometimes, the ice you build isn't to hurt others. It's to preserve what's left of you. That hit me hard. I'm not here to destroy anyone, but I'll never again abandon myself for the sake of keeping others warm. I was nothing to him, and now I refuse to be everything to people who treat me like a backup plan. The first time I saw Miguel on the street after everything, I almost didn't recognize him. His clothes hung off his frame, his face was gaunt, and his eyes, those eyes that once looked at me with confidence and lies, were hollow. He looked lost. Not the charming man I married, but a shell of him. And still I felt nothing. Not pity, not rage, just distance. Like I was watching a stranger drown in a storm he created. Turns out, losing me wasn't just emotional. It was financial, social, spiritual. He betrayed me, and with it, lost every safety net I once provided. The house, gone. The car, repossessed. His job, well, when Carmen left and she exposed him at her workplace, his boss didn't want the drama. The scandal spread like wildfire. The truth came out, and no amount of charm could save him this time. I was nothing to him when he had everything. But now, he realized just how much I held up. I paid the bills, managed our finances, even helped him through unemployment more than once. But he thought I'd always stay, right? He thought I would stay because I was loyal. But loyalty without respect is just self-sacrifice in disguise. And I had sacrificed enough. Carmen left him shortly after. She finally left. Probably when the fantasy collided with reality. Baby on the way. No home, no job, no more stolen smiles and secret glances. Just real life, the kind he never prepared for. She filed for support, flipped the script, and demanded money he didn't have. Funny, isn't it? How the woman who once betrayed me now mirrored my role in his downfall. Poetic justice, some might say. He started emailing me poems. Yes, actual poems. Lines about regret, love, and the woman he never deserved. I didn't read past the first two. My silence was my answer. I wasn't there to save him anymore. I didn't even bother blocking him. Let him scream into the void. Let him sit with what he did, day after day. That's not cruelty. That's consequence. One of our old mutual friends called, voice shaking. He's staying on someone's couch now. It's bad, Anna. I said nothing, because no one said anything to me when she cried in silence, when I spiraled, when I sat in that empty apartment, staring at walls, wondering how to keep breathing. He made his bed with lies. Now he could sleep in it, cold and alone. You know what I learned watching him fall? That some people only grow when everything around them burns down. But others just crumble. He broke me first, but I rebuilt. He, on the other hand, scattered like dust in the wind, couldn't face himself, couldn't fix what he broke. That's what happens when ego runs your life. Eventually, it crashes, and there's no one left to clean up the mess. People around town whispered, he used to have it all, but they didn't know the truth behind the illusion. They didn't know she planned it all, that Carmen targeted me from the start, that nobody believed her when she claimed innocence, because screenshots don't lie. I found the messages. I showed them to the right people. So I showed him the proof, and watched his empire collapse. Even now he tries to blame me, says I turned everyone against him. No, Miguel, you did that all by yourself. I just stopped covering for you. The spiral was never mine to carry. It was always yours. I just stepped out of the eye of the storm and let it tear through your lies. And it did, completely. It's strange, isn't it? How you can live in a cage for so long, not even realizing it's there, and then one day, the door swings open. I'd never felt freedom like this before. When I left the past behind, when I reclaimed my life, it wasn't just about walking away from Miguel. It was about reclaiming me. All the dreams I had put on hold, the fears I had buried under compromise, they were mine again. The first morning after everything settled, I woke up and didn't feel that knot in my stomach, the one that used to come every time I thought about him or what he might be doing. I realized something important that day. I was free, but I wasn't free because of him or despite him. I was free because I chose to be. It was a choice I made every single day, and each day it felt more empowering. I remember standing at the kitchen window, feeling the sunlight hit my face. I wasn't scared. I wasn't anxious about the bills, the future, the loneliness. For the first time in years, I wasn't worried about anyone else's happiness but my own. I could breathe without the weight of expectation on me. And then there was Lily, my daughter, the purest reminder that sometimes the best things in life come after the darkest chapters. We went to the beach. Not long after, Lily and I had taken her there before, when Miguel would act like he was too busy or too tired. But this time, it was just us. The sound of the waves was calming, and I found myself laughing at her giggles. I didn't feel that undercurrent of guilt I used to carry. I didn't have to apologize for anything, because I wasn't responsible for anyone else's choices anymore. I had created this moment of peace. There was something else, too. Something about that trip that solidified a shift in my soul. I was deceived by Miguel for so long, by his lies, by his manipulations. But now, I wasn't just living. I was thriving. I wasn't defined by the stories of betrayal, the hurt, the scars. I was defined by my own strength. He never saw it coming. He thought he could take everything from me, but what he couldn't take was my will to rebuild. I spent the money I had worked so hard to save, the money I had earned. No guilt, no shame. I wasn't wasting it. I was investing in my peace. It was my money to use, my life to live, and for the first time, I wasn't asking anyone for permission. Not him, not my family, just me and Lily, and the life we were going to build, strong and steady, without anyone dragging us down. The irony hit me hard, though. There he was, lost and spiraling, and here I was, building something solid from the ground up. There was no revenge in my heart, no desire to see him suffer. I didn't need to. The universe had already served him what he deserved, and I didn't have to lift a finger. But what it did serve me was freedom. Sweet, sweet freedom. As I stood on that beach, watching Lily collect seashells, I realized that the freedom I had found wasn't just a gift to myself. It was a gift to her too. She would grow up knowing that you don't have to settle. You don't have to tolerate disrespect or lies. You choose your own path, and you choose people who respect you for who you are. The cycle of pain, manipulation, and sacrifice, it stops here, with us. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing. It was mine to shape. Every single choice, every moment of happiness, it was mine. I had broken free from everything I had endured, and I realized that nothing at all, could take that away from me. Not anymore. And so, with every step I took away from my past, I found myself closer to the woman I was always meant to be. The woman who refused to be broken. The woman who refused to let anyone, not even him, define her. I was free.